What's up, guys? Larry Chen. Welcome to another episode of Hoonigan Autofocus. This is a really special episode. I guess every episode is special, but this one is just, I don't even know what to say. This is the Altimaniac. This is it.
Wow.
And this is your creation.
Yeah, this is the newest, latest, and greatest build that we kind of put together. I had this idea for a while now. I mean, it all really started with La Fama Blanca, which is now black, which is now wrapped, which is now living, many different lives. I've had that car I built that car 10 years ago. You were there. You were one of the first people to ride in it. And since then, as the years went by and drift car progression started getting crazier and crazier, that was 2011 build, very different type of mentality. And now it's like just much more technology, much more capability. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, I wanted to just build a version 2.
We actually did a video on that car, and I think Jared gave it the name, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, because essentially it is that you get in it and it spins you around and it does all this stuff, throws you around. You basically get whiplash and it's a lot of fun. But as you said many times in that video, so much of it is just the old way of building things. It was cutting edge for its time, but you look at it now and it's like, oh, I want to fix this, I want to update this, I want to do that. And you kind of hinted to me at that time of that filming that you're going to build something like this, which is no holds bar, anything, basically anything you can imagine.
Pretty much anything goes, yeah.
Yeah, anything goes, tube chassis, and you want to give the best experience to your passengers, because the most fun part of drifting is sharing the sideways feeling, sharing the culture, and there's no better way than giving these people rides.
Yeah, and that's what I've always said, which is why I built that car in the first place, is the most fun that you can have in a car, in my opinion, is drifting, and so why not share that with as many people as possible? So why not have a 4-seater instead of a 2-seater? And so to be able to go out to events like Grid Life and give 3 times more of the rides than a single seat, and burn down the same amount of tires and fuel and everything else, just the wear and tear on the cars is so much to try and give that many people rides. And on this car's debut, we did like 50 rides in a day, which is insane. But this car was, like I mentioned at that time when we were filming this car, I said that, what if we could build whatever we wanted? Like, what would that be? And, so in my opinion, it was, the newest model Nissan 4-door. And then instead of worrying about finding a rear-wheel drive platform to start with, it's like, we can do whatever we want. And so instead of just doing like an FD style rule book and kind of just adding a roll cage and sticking, an engine and trans in it, we were like, well, what if we just cut everything out, and the only part that's Nissan left on this car really is, the A-pillar, the doors, and the roof. So basically this little hoop here, everything else has been cut out and removed.
Well, Nissan Altima.
Altima.
Yeah. There's other Nissan in here, and that's the engine.
Yeah. I'm saying as far as the frame.
Right. So, but this is cool because you legitimately, you guys know I love Nissan. I'm a big Nissan guy, but you took the most vanilla Nissan and turned it into this crazy V8 supercar, DTM looking thing. The thing that I got the most in the comments, which by the way, okay, so we are just we filmed and we shot and we did a bunch of stuff at Grid Life Skip Day, and that was the debut. That was the first time you ever drove it, first time you kicked it sideways, first time it's ever seen the track, first time it's really run, and it was flawless. And I think that's one of those things where all of the things that you've learned over the years up until this point got you there.
Yeah, there's no way we could have had that successful of a debut years back. And yeah, I mean, like you said, this car fired up for the first time Tuesday night at midnight. The next morning, we were buttoning up some wiring things and some suspension bits, and the car hit the ground for the first time ever, like off jack stands on the ground on its own wheels and tires and suspension at 3:30 or so. 3:30 on Wednesday. We load it in the trailer, take it to the dyno. We put a map in it. John Reed goes and tunes the whole car in an hour and 15 minutes. Putting all the throttle mapping into it, anti-lag, the full power pulls, making 1,300 horsepower in the low boost setting, and it didn't have a single tick or hiccup or anything in it. And then we put it right in the trailer. And then we took it to Grid Life, and that was its initial outing, was Grid Life, and it just went off without a hitch.
Wait a minute. Okay, you just said something that does not make any sense. 1,300 horsepower in its low boost setting?
Oh, we're shooting for 2,000, bud. So we figure on the first outing, since there was already enough variables, we just set it to the same boost as the Pro car. So it did 10, 12 to the ground, which is almost 1,300. We're shooting for 2,000 to have the world's most powerful drift car. And so not only, first CAD designed tube chassis car, also it being a 4-seater, and then it being the most powerful. These are kind of like all the things we're trying to do with the ultimate drift car, which is where we, there's been many names. We call it the Altimaniac. I've heard the Ultimate Warrior. There's a lot of different names going around with the car. But like you said, I really like the idea of doing it with an Altima because, like you said, it is one of the most vanilla cars. It's the highest grossing car that Nissan sells. You get it at the rental car facility. It's just your standard, reliable sedan. And what can we do to make it the most insane car of all time?
I mean, it's okay. And on top of that, at Grid Life, I had a chance to chase you in my Toyota Supra, which talk about being outpowered. This thing makes so much smoke, and I know you only turned a couple laps in it, but when you just get it at angle and you get down on that throttle, oh my God.
It just starts moving.
It's like a light switch. It's on or off. It's like not making much smoke. You're sliding, whatever, you're in there, you initiated. Then as soon as you get on the throttle, it's like a light switch. It just turns on, and I legitimately cannot see anything at all. I'm looking at just the corners of the track, the sides, to make sure I just don't drive off into oblivion.
That's all you can really do. And so, yeah, but the fun thing is, like I said, it has so much drivability, and even with or without the anti-lag, the twin turbo Garrett setup is just just breathing on the pedal and it just lights off. I'm not sitting there whooping on it, trying to keep it moving. You just pull a gear, stand on the throttle, and just blows the tires off. And it's just still accelerating in drift with 4 people in it. I haven't even put it on the scales yet. I don't even know what it weighs. Because like I said, literally, when you were chasing me, this car was running and driving on its own power less than 24 hours ago, or for less than 24 hours, I should say. So just, we have very little time with it so far, but I absolutely love every bit of it.
One question. So you, I monitored my social media, your social media, and we were I just wanted to see what the gauge was in terms of what people were thinking. A lot of people did say DTM, it looks like a V8 supercar, this, that, and the other. And one of the things I think I saw was why is it that nobody's done it before? And I think you answered, it has been done before, but it hasn't been done with this packaging. Mm-hmm. I guess with this much focus, this much spotlight on a certain build. People have done little portions of this kind of sort of build, but not put everything together at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. There are other tube chassis cars. There are exo cage cars. There obviously are cars that sit super low and big flares. That's been done. My whole thing was trying to, like you said, have it all be together. Have that DTM look. One of the goals was to get the wheel arches up over the headlights. I just love that look, and the hood arch coming into the hood line. And then just having the thing sit literally on the ground and still work.
Yeah, so when you say on the ground,
we just spent 30 minutes getting it out of the trailer?
When you say on the ground, it's legitimately laying frame on the ground.
Can't get my foot under it.
Yeah, you can't get your foot under, and this is how low it is, guys. Open that door. This is my favorite part of your entire car. The fact that you had to cut this much into essentially where the striker goes.
Yeah. And there's only this much room because we will put 500 pounds of people in the back of this car. So it needs a little bit of squish. So like it sits this low and then it will settle down and then get leaned into a corner. So like it will put, you can see a little bit of burn right here from the rubber. Like the tire will touch up in there.
Well, when we're actually following you, you're bottoming out so much.
Oh yeah.
On the slightest incline, slightest curve, if you were just driving on the highway and you went over the center, if you
it
just
would
merged,
rip all the reflectors out.
you would just blow every single reflector out because of how low it is. You're shooting like F1 style sparks with this thing. It's
I mean,
such
if they can get away with it, why can't we?
It's such a crazy mix when following you. It's like you're shooting rubber, you're shooting marbles, rocks, everything, which one of my favorite clips from following you that day was going into a corner, and then as soon as you just laid on it, you shot a rock perfectly right into the middle of the lens. But my favorite part is, because it shattered the filter, it made like a kind of a cool natural framing of you just still there. But it was a lot of fun, and I'm just so glad we were able to capture the first time you ran this thing. So let's kind of go over it from the ground up.
There's a lot to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the first thing, as we mentioned, fully CAD designed tube chassis. And, we went through like, the seat mounting locations, the engine mounting, the radiator, the fuel tank, all that stuff was thrown into the actual drawing to get everything placed just right. And we really wanted to focus on like interior space. So it's really tight. The transmission tunnel is very small. Like when you pull those panels off, things are like a 1/4 inch off, which is kind of a pain to work on. But since this car is all about giving rides and the passenger experience, we wanted to have a lot of room inside, or as much room as possible. And then the other thing is that we also went through the engine placement is so far back. I actually didn't even know if it was going to work because the engine is completely behind the front axle, putting the transmission really far back. I actually had to take the shifter apart, flip it around and mount it forwards and put the shifter bend forwards in order for me to even reach it, because otherwise the shifter would have been back by my elbow. That's how far back the transmission is.
Well, because generally speaking, it's moved this way because the engine's usually pretty far forward.
Yeah, normally this is 180 around, so that would sit here, and then this shifter extension would put it like back here.
Right.
And so we had to flip the whole thing around, machine it out a little bit to get it to be more in line with the steering wheel.
I also love the fact that this is the first time I'm able to feature a professional drift car with somebody, with you essentially sitting in the back. You're like pointing and showing me.
Right over there.
It's so cool to see where the Altima parts are, and then it actually it ties in perfectly with what the chassis. So this is all
yeah, like if you look, the whole thing's painted with steelite, and this is like what I'm talking about. So the whole cage sits in the A-pillar. So see how like this whole thing is cupped out and the tube sits in there. It's just against that outer skin. There's no room. And then we had to shave the roof out and push this up, and then even the B pillars, the A pillars and B pillars, the tube sits inside of that. Whereas with our former drift cars, it's normally further in. So this just giving as much space for the passengers as possible. And then just having as many tube interconnections to make sure that it's safe. This is designed by teams that design tube chassis like off-road trucks, and so it's a lot of cage for a drift car, but then again, it's only a cage, so we really want to make sure it's right.
What's also crazy to me is how low the door bars are, but they're still, I mean, this is all
you still have a lot of
structural.
nice solid protection here. We want to make sure people can get in and out. Since we're going to have different people climbing in. But yeah, we added, these side tubes, so any sort of collision is still protecting the passenger. And like, I'm 6'1" and I got plenty of room here, so this all fits great, plenty of headroom. One of the other things that, a little idea I had that seemed to really take off. Everyone's loving it.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I've never seen this done before.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got the screen in the back so that you can see everything, all the engine vitals. You got the RPM, you got the speed, you got the gear, battery and different temperatures. Basically to kind of overwhelm the passengers with like a lot of flashing lights and things going on. So it's it's things that we have to pay attention to while we're driving. So why shouldn't we let them pay attention to it?
I love that so much. I mean, you're not only is it a different experience sitting in the back, just because just the way the car swings, you feel it so much more.
Oh yeah, you're literally sitting on the rear tire.
Yeah, you're sitting on the rear tire, and it's just a completely different. And on top of that, you get a great view of what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's like what we're saying. We really wanted to have everything open, so you get good view, especially from the back seat. Like I can see all the way out the windshield just fine, and it just like allows for just awesome ride-along experience. Like the videos like look so good. The M, it's a little more confined. But we're able to like move the seats a little further out, and have more room in here, and so it was just really cool how we're able to make this one come together.
Passenger comfort. I'm still picking up marbles. Like
you're
gonna be picking these out forever. But I love these seats too. I absolutely love the fact that they're matching front and rear.
Yep. So we got the Recaro podiums, the full carbon. They're brand new. Super comfortable, and just they look amazing.
They look so good. I mean, it looks like it was built for something like this. And plus, on top of that, you want to talk about saving room. This is one of the things that I always look at when I look at cars, and I think, man, how much space is wasted just from the seats?
Yeah, like they're thick, and they're normally just taking up a lot of visual space, and so yeah, these are just confined but still snug. And yeah, it was the perfect seats for the car, for sure.
Plus this, you guys cut all of this.
Oh, the laser etched, yeah. Well, no, these are actually all cut by Rob Parsons. He has all the laser cutting material. He cut all the tubes out and bent them for us. This whole car showed up on a pallet. It was kind of insane. And but yeah, all this was designed by Tech Consulting and then cut out by Rob and shipped to us. And then Jimmy is really the mastermind who put this car together. It was just my dumb idea, but he's the one that built the car. And just getting in there and just tacking it all up and fitting it all up, cutting all these panels out. We had some help from the rest of the team. Darren came out, Russell came out, even B-Dub, Ryan Wilkerson came out, and to help with different aspects of the car. Dylan did some welding. Dylan welded up all the different tube interchanges since he's really good with the MIG. And we had a lot of hands on this thing. It was definitely took a village to put this thing together.
Yeah, it's really a really big team project. Just the floor, like the fact that it's perfectly flat. It's like it's so weird to see this.
Yeah, I know. It's normally not a thing.
It just doesn't happen. And on top of that, on the other side of this is the ground.
Yeah, basically. So like there are tubes under there. There is a web structure that's underneath all these tubes, but that's it. So like you see, there's a tube right across here. That's where this seam is. So the roll cage or the seat brackets come into the floor cage, tie into the sides. This ties into that bottom tube and across to this interchange. So everything pulls together.
Yeah, this is incredible too. Like this is just like
right here is a gnarly one. There's 9 tubes that come together back here. You can only see 5 of them, and then there's 4 more behind that. That just all come together at the point of the rear differential, just really triangulating the power going through the chassis.
And also one thing that's super unique about this car is it is a rear radiator setup, right? And I feel like I haven't seen a 4-seater with that.
No, and that's what I was worried about, because we're building this thing like a race car, but being a 4-seater. So like my Infiniti has a front mount rad, the engine straddles the front axle, things like that, and it still feels like it's sailing. And this car we put the fuel cell in the back, the radiator in the back, and we have the engine pushed super far back. So it's got a lot of rear percentage, but it works super well.
It's so cool also when you look at this, you can see everything. You can see the rear suspension, you can see the tires, the brakes. It's crazy. Also, you could see the tie-in. This is the coolest, like gooseneck, just tied right onto the chassis right here.
Yep. Yeah, no, I really like that design. We drew this in because the idea was, okay, do we come in from the back? Do we do the bumper swing? I was like, no, I want it to look fast, right? So it's got real long, down and in.
It's the swan neck. Swan neck.
Real nice long swan necks.
Can we take a look at this? Whoa.
So yeah, this is where you really see the tube chassis coming together. So it's not like we just built it out of tube and then mocked up subframes. The subframes are built into the chassis. So this was all flat plate steel. This is just your standard chromoly plate steel that was cut out on the laser table, and these pieces are all cut out too and then broke into a C channel. They all click together, and it actually would, see these little welds here and these welds here. these were all keyed in, so they would actually like, they would like click in like tongue and groove, the whole chassis, even the cage. And so you would tongue and groove all these different panels and the subframe and everything so that you would actually build the whole thing into the chassis. So you can technically, cut it off and replace the whole rear bulkhead, but instead of, like I said, just like grabbing a subframe, kind of squaring it up and just sticking some tubes to it, we're like, no, let's build it all into the chassis. It's less weight and it's stronger.
This structure, this support is so cool. I mean, the fact that you have just one for the taillight buckets, that's why nothing moves when I'm following you and I see this thing moving. Like this whole car is moving, but none of the panels are moving. They're just so sturdy. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, that's why legitimately I said this is the craziest drift car I've ever seen. I mean, because realistically, not another drift car has been built to this level, and legitimately, once it does make 2,000 horsepower, I think it's probably just going to be the craziest drift car. Oh yeah,
it's going to be way nuts. Like, we were running the GT radials like pretty high of pressure, and it was still just like blow them off at 1,300. So I know, like my goal is to be the first drift car to 2,000, and so we're basically ready to do that. Like, we got our engines built by T1, and those guys are making over 3,000 on some of these cars, and so we're like, why not? Why can't we do that?
Yeah, let's look at the engine, because this is, of course, the centerpiece of this build. They've made 3,000
over 3,000 wheel horsepower
for drag cars.
Yes, and so my goal was to hit 2,000 horsepower, which is essentially like 1,700 wheel, which is more than anyone's made in a drift car as far as I know.
When you say far back too, it's almost like there's nothing here. Well, there's legitimately nothing here.
Oh yeah, you can just hop right in here, There's plenty of room, and I'm still 3 feet away from the engine.
Right.
It's so far back. Like I was saying, it is completely behind the front axle.
But and part of it is that the VR is pretty short.
Yes, so that does help, of course. It is a V6, so it's only technically, like 24 inches long. It's not like it's a 2J, but I mean, still, that just keeps pushing the weight back. There's so little in front of the axle. You have, just the steering column, you have the intercooler, and like that's why I put the battery up front. I'm like, why not? That's where all the power is anyway. So, the alternator, the starter, and everything else. So there was almost no need to put the battery in the back. So I just actually wanted to help offset the weight. That's why I put the oil tank up front too. The turbos are a little forward as well. I mean, that does help, but at the point where getting the engine to fit where it was the happiest due to the steering rack, because if we pushed that any further forward, we would have had to do a completely different steering design. So we actually fit it so that it was, if you look at the oil pump, you got about a 1/4 inch clearance to that rack.
Wow, it's so close.
Oh yeah.
But I love the way the steering is, and you got your sway bar set up. It's so neat.
All that was drawn in, and this is like what I'm saying. Like, once again, like there's no subframe up here. This is all just built into the chassis. The shock mounts for the BC coilovers is built into the down bars. All the tabs for the Part Shop Max suspension is built in. We welded all of these on. That's not a subframe that we, just threw into the car. These were all cut out of the laser plate, and they slide into this tube. They get welded on the back side, welded on the front side, welded on the insides. They're braced in every which way.
It's crazy. This is what happens when you have a blank canvas, when you have to build a purpose-built drift car, versus taking an actual street car
and throwing a cage and a big motor in it.
And turning it into, even the craziest Formula Drift cars nowadays, it has nothing on this at all, because of the fact that it started life as a street car and there's so much sheet metal in it.
Yeah.
The fact that you can make this, in the computer and what it's going to look like. I guess
you can move anything anywhere you want. And so, like, real quick, here's the difference where people say that Formula Drift cars are tube chassis. This is all the tube structure in the front end of this car. It's a bumper, right? It's a intercooler hanger and a front bumper. We're not allowed to cut into the chassis beyond the first suspension point, which is right here. So we shave that flat, we put a flange there, and this is just a replaceable crash bar, essentially. This is all factory. This is all factory locations, factory mounting points, factory shock towers, factory firewalls. We can cut the trans tunnel out to fit a bigger transmission, but everything else is all stock location. And you know, you have the factory subframe, all of that stuff. Like I was saying, with this car, it's totally different.
Yeah, and this is your Formula Drift.
That's the Formula Drift car. It's a little dirty right now, but yeah. we're getting on that one next week.
This is important right now. That'll be next.
Yeah, that's next in line. The motor, that's the motor in the box right there, just showed up, so we're gonna get that baby put back together. We got 6XD sitting on the rack for that one too. So we definitely have the parts, they're all here and ready. And now that this one's done and running, we can put our focus back on the Pro car.
So is this still a 3.8 liter?
No, this one's pushed out to 4.1. So 4.1, we got the billet crank in there. You know, same compression, 9:1. And we went with a little smaller cam this year than last year, and I think that really helped with the mid-range, and we're still making plenty of power up top. It's kind of insane. And this year we went with a Garrett G30 770s on this setup to get it kind of lit off. These are the turbos we're going to be running on the Pro car, so we wanted to test these out, and at this power level, the FD power level, like 1,000 to the ground, they feel great. They're lighting off perfect. They're a little bit easier on the engine than the G25 660s, but this car will be getting G35 1050s to make the big power number.
There's a couple other things I wanted to point out. Like, this structure is so cool. I just love that. It's just like this thin little piece of metal, but this is actually what's giving its rigidity over here.
Yep. So this is just a little rod that Jimmy made up to hold the headlight a little bit more secure. And but yeah, that is a little bit of the stock fender that we're using to place the headlight.
It's 2 inches.
Oh
it's
yeah,
so funny.
It was literally just to help place the headlights and stuff. So we just put that in there, trimmed it all the way out, and then that's just what the fenders kind of mount to front and rear.
Right. My question is, how does it drive?
It actually drives way better than I thought. I was terrified of it just like not working at all. The Infiniti kind of has a similar feel of a lot of forward drive and a lot of side slide. You know, it just, with all the weight in the back, it just really wants to keep going. But once you get on the pedal, you have so much weight back there, it just digs and goes. This car has the same feel, it's just the forward drive is much more exaggerated because of all the power. That thing will load up and kind of bog down. This one just blows the tires off and starts running. So the extra slide is still kind of there, and we are going to try and work on tuning that out. We were never able to tune out that car because it just never had the power to be able to drive out if we put more side grip into it. But for the sake of it being the first shakedown day, I was like, you know, let's just leave it. It's a little loose at deep angle, but it's fine. Let's just, you know, car feels good. Let's just, you know, keep driving it and not like, you know, put crazy grip into it and potentially break something. So it was a successful outing.
It's just so amazing to me that this much effort went into a car that just blows off tires.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is.
Literally just a tire incinerator.
I love that. So one other thing up here, the exhaust, my goodness. This thing blows serious fireballs. As you can see, it's very charred here just from how many laps? Like whatever, like 25 laps that you did at Horse Thief Mile. It was blowing off these fireballs, so they were so big. They were coming out to here.
Yeah, it was awesome. So
you just
we did want to do that for the flame effect. We were going to have it come out the hood. But we're like, what if, because this is funny, like you don't really even notice, the windshield, you know, on a standard car normally comes like way down to here, right? And so we actually shortened the windshield, and Jimmy built this flat panel in, because normally the windshield comes all the way to here.
Right, because
and dips down for the wiper.
Yeah, the wipers and also like I guess the vents over here.
So the windshield is like 6 inches shorter. We made a new channel for it. He cut a new custom window for it. And like once that was all done, we're like, well, what if we put the exhaust out behind the hood instead of like through the hood like everybody does? So this is actually a pretty different look than what most people do.
Yeah, it looks great, and on top of that, it's actually kind of hidden.
Yeah.
Yeah. To the point where we were just pulling it out right now. And I was standing right here, like my face was right here.
It just smoked you.
Yeah, I just got smoked out.
But yeah, like I like how, when you look at it, you know, you don't have this, when you look under the hood, you don't just have this like little, you know, like a little poker like coming right through. It like kind of winds out to the side and just looks much more clean under the engine bay.
Let's see, can we talk about the wheel tire?
Oh yeah. And like that's the thing, like we can go over like all these custom details for days. It's like You know, so these wheels are custom made by Rotiform, and they're just such a cool look. It just follows the same gray as the interior, so like, you know, it just kind of has a little pull to the you know, East Coast gray colors that we normally do on our interiors, and just kind of bringing that out to like a nice racy looking wheel. But the rotor hats were custom made, and we made custom caliper brackets for the Nismo calipers to put those on the thing front and rear.
Wait, are those from the R35 or?
No, those are aftermarket for the Z.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so 4-piston front, 2-piston rears, and we made custom brackets with the help from our guys down at OMD in San Diego. They did the rotor hats, they did the caliper brackets, and did a little bit of machining on the hubs to help make it all kind of fit together. And so, yeah, like the coloring on the caliper, we got that to match the wheel. You can kind of see the bracketry a little bit from the inside, you know, so a little bit of custom work in there.
Yeah, you can pretty much see the whole thing.
You can see everything.
Yeah, that is incredible. Huh. That is something else.
But yeah, and then yeah, just the same thing on the rear, just a lot of custom work getting the rear set up on. So
it's just this detail I've just never seen on any other car. I've featured so many cars, but the fact that you have to cut this and it's like this jagged edge right
that's
there.
like Volkswagen stuff.
It's just so cool. It's just so cool. Also, the design. Tell me about the body. Like, this is something, I mean, I don't even know what kind of style this is. I guess this is like straight up prototype race car stuff.
Yeah, so we were looking at some like World Challenge cars and like some prototype cars, like, because we really wanted to go with like a race look and not just like another like bell-bottom drift car look. And so we did the you know, the big exposed rear vents on the front end. We did the you know, the fender vents on the top, but on the rear, it's like, okay, how do we pull, you know, from the bottom up and over? And I didn't want to do like a NASCAR style, just like a full blistered door, you know, like a big block door. So I wanted to get like an arch back into it. We took a couple hits from some of the World Challenge cars that we saw, and they just had this like really flowy, you know, rear vent right here to kind of add some downforce. At least in my opinion, I think that's what they're going for. But you know, they kind of would taper this all the way out and have this blocked off as like a nice big side wing. Whereas, you know, we're like, well, you know, F it, let's do a little like fender scoop, you know, for the smoke. So, you know, this whole area stays super clean, and this just pumps air through, and you actually still even see this whole part of the fender. It just like chugs the smoke out the back vent.
Yeah, but what's also cool is depending on your wheel speed, smoke comes out of here.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, so it's coming out and around, and it's just like coming out of every orifice. And on top of that, you're making so much smoke. It's the first time that I'm following somebody and smoke, I could see it coming out of my vents. You know, it's just so silly that we're like in there, you know.
No way.
But it's also cool that you just left just enough room for the stock door handle.
Just fits. And like same thing with this, you know, this is as far as we could cut into it before we were getting rid of the striker. So we're able to utilize the factory striker. Yeah, so you can see where it was kind of burning into the paint a little bit here. So we're getting a little bit of rub on this side. Which we have to address, but maybe just because it was a lot of left turns, that downhill left turns, it was probably just leaning this way a little bit more.
I mean, because you could just probably adjust the shocks a little bit to raise it a little bit.
Yeah, but why would we do that?
Yeah, why not? Also, another thing I noticed about the doors, just the safety, extra safety thing, you just kind of have one bar in there.
Yeah, we left the factory door bars just because, you know, for any sort of like light bumps, you know, if anything happens out there, you don't have someone just kind of like bumping through the door. So in the race cars, you know, we hollow all that out. We run the carbon doors. But, you know, for a passenger car, you know, or like a ride-along car, you know, we don't want people just like, you know, getting spooked because, you know, a bumper like a Mustang is kind of trying to bust through the door.
You trying to call out Vaughn or what? What's going on here?
I don't know, it's always a Mustang.
And the livery, my goodness. It just, I love that you kind of just owned it. You went with that theme. And it's super simple. It reminds me of like the older Nissan liveries.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me of like the number 75 300ZX Z32, or also like BRE 240Z. Same colors.
Yeah, Paul Newman themes, like all that. Yeah, the red, white, and blue, it's killer. Valvoline has always had like just really cool, iconic, you know, schemes. And so we really wanted to get like a clean, like, you know, like you've seen all my cars. They're very blocky, like color blocking. I don't really do all the crazy print patterns. And so like, Valvoline schemes have always stood out to me as like having that kind of look. And so when they sent this one over to me, I was like, I think you guys nailed it. So the big V on the front really sets the tone, and then it just pulls across and puts the reds on the passenger side and puts the blues on the driver's side. And so it just, the theme of the car changes as it's transitioning.
Yeah, that's one of the things that you mentioned on your social posts, that you're like, it's we're as when we're following you and when we're looking forward and we see you transition in between the corners, the car is changing. It's going from a red livery to a blue or aqua livery. And it just looks so crazy. It's so cool that you can essentially get 2 different looks from one car, but it's the same livery.
Yeah, no, I know. That's the cool part. And like, it just pulls off of the Valvoline V. And so, and like the Nissan Nismo cars have had, red, white, and blue schemes as well. So that, like, it fits right in. And just, the whole idea with the car is like less is more, even though it's a lot. But, like just having like a lot of openness to it, a lot like the clean scheme, not just like having it super busy, super packed and very confined. We're just really looking for having, like good visibility everywhere. A lot of room in the engine bays, a lot of room in the back of the car, a lot of room inside the car. And I just love the way it came out.
It's so also just the where your office is, it's so simple. I mean, you don't have a million gauges. You just have one AM, that I guess what do you call it?
CD7, yep, okay. The dash.
Yeah, the AM dash, just a couple buttons, and everything else is it's just all business.
Yep, yeah, we thought about putting a dash into the car, and then like once this started kind of laying in, we're like, looks really good without one too. Like really shows off the tube chassis part, and so we just like put a little liner. Like Jimmy came up with this idea to just put the liner on that top pad. And yeah, it really pulled it together. And yeah, like it's just crazy how much energy went into this. It's like you got like, Jimmy put like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 days. He'll probably laugh and say it was actually 5 or 6 days into like, fitting these panels and trimming it out and putting the venting into it. Just like all the little details. There's just so much that went into it. Just to have it all kind of come together. And so like there's, like I said, a lot of people came in on putting this car together. Not only off-site, like I said, with design work, the tube cutting, things like that, but also of course here in the shop. This car was built on jack stands right where the Datsun's sitting and was still on jack stands up until last Wednesday.
My last thing before I let you go. This is a 4-seater, but what if you did this and it's a 2-seater? Like how crazy of a drift car would it be?
Well, I mean, you just don't put anybody in the back.
No. I'm saying
it's still just as good.
No, I know. I'm saying if you could build like a smaller drift car, like let's say if you were to build like a potentially like the new Z, but it was to this level, it would just be so insane.
It would be pretty insane. Like I don't think there's too much of a disadvantage for this car the way it is, especially if, this car with nobody in it would probably be like one of the best drifting cars, as in, when you don't have all the extra weight that's kind of throwing it around. You got good wheelbase, you got great suspension, you got awesome, engine placement, rear, placement, where you're not going to have all that side pull. Because I always say the M, when I'm by myself in that car, the very, very few times that I am, is like the best driving car I have. And so I can only imagine that this one is even better still because it just has that much more speed and angle and just capability. Whereas, the long wheelbase cars are more fun to drive. The short wheelbase cars are just a little faster, but, which is why you don't really see big wheelbase cars in competition. So yeah, I mean, if we were to build like a short wheelbase car in this kind of capacity, it would be a pretty gnarly animal to have, for FD. And, maybe that is coming in the future as, roll cages are just showing up in the mail with perfect fits. Maybe, we are starting to just build, a few different chassis, for manufacturers, as in like, I'm building the Nissans here in our shop and Vaughn's building Fords and, Steph's building Toyotas. And it's more of like a, a spec series, at least on one tier. And then you have the Pro Spec, which is, you know, utilizing more of like the factory chassis and the pedals and the columns and everything they're pushing those rules towards. So, you know, sky's the limit, and I just wanted to try and be the first to do it. So who knows what's going to happen in the future, but this car is quite the party.
Crazy. So is the transmission pretty much the same as your Pro car?
It is now, yeah. We're running the 6XD in this car, and we're running the same one next year in our car.
So cool. Thank you so much for walking us through it. There is so much more too. There's so many details on this thing, but yeah. I
know. How long are these people going to sit
yeah,
around
I know.
and watch
How
you?
long are you guys gonna watch? Well, you guys come to autofocus to fall asleep, not to wake up. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely, Chris, always thank you so much for letting us feature your cars. We love shooting your cars. We love following what you're doing. And yeah, this is no exception. This is like the jam. This is the story right now.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.